Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you might be in this wonderful world of ours. And welcome to this In the Spotlight with me, your host, Seamus Corry, wellbeing consultant and mental health practitioner. I just want to thank you for joining us, for listening in and tuning in to this wonderful podcast episode this afternoon. And I also want to thank all of you for continuing to listen and support these podcast episodes. These episodes are all about shining a spotlight on some amazing individuals we have in this wonderful world of ours who are doing amazing work, who are shining a light of hope and prosperity on our world, which, as we can appreciate, is facing its challenges at the moment from a global perspective. And it's on that basis today that I want to tell you a little bit about my guest who I've got on today. She is a self-described research addict, not my words, her words, with a master's degree in educational psychology from California State University at Northridge. She grew up near Los Angeles, but now lives in a smaller community, and we're going to dig into that for reasons that will become clear. She now approaches and begins to look at and studies the importance of small groups of people, or small groups of people, or a tribe, and the effect that that has on an individual's life. So important is the subject for her that she spent the last 7 years studying evolutionary psychology, and she's here to share with us her perspective. Not from the global world, but from a cave dweller's perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, can I introduce this afternoon to you the one, the only, Annette Taylor. Annette, good afternoon and welcome to In the Spotlight. How are you?
Thank you. What an intro.
Yeah, I didn't write it, you did.
I know, but you really put some emphasis on it. I loved it.
Thank you. It just brings it to life, right?
It sure does.
It just brings it to life, right? So tell the audience where you tuning in, where are you coming to us today from?
I am in a small-ish beach community in Southern California. I grew up near Los Angeles, but moved north a little bit. Okay. And now I live in a city called Ventura.
Wow. So talk to me about educational psychology. Why educational psychology in it?
For lots of reasons. When I was younger, I had some responsibilities in my family that made me grow up a little quicker, I think, than an average kid. And when I got to college, I decided that I wanted to know more about people in general. And got a master's in psychology. Okay. And then I got very interested in kids. So I got a job at a preschool, and I decided I wanted to delve deeper into the experience of children. So I got a master's in educational psychology with an emphasis in early childhood education.
Okay, got it.
Kind of a mouthful, but and so then I, had my life, had my own kids, and then got obsessed with a television show, and I got curious about how that could have happened. As a 47-year-old, I was obsessed with a couple actors on a show, and I was like, what is this? Like, how is this happening? And started doing research on my own in the field of evolutionary psychology and learned about myself, and then realized what I learned about myself really applies to everyone.
Wow. What a magical story. And I know you and I connected as a result of me sharing my own story, I think on another podcast, right?
Yeah, it was on Getting Unstuck, Cultivating Curiosity with Jeff Eichler.
Yeah, the great Jeff Eichler. What an amazing guy, an amazing brother from another mother, and wonderful guy producing Some great episodes out there. So yeah, high five to Jeff if he's listening in this afternoon. Um, yeah, it was as a result of that we met and connected with one another because you were interested and curious to find out about my experience having
Mhm.
been institutionalized as I was, and what that was like for me, almost like a, a human cave for a long period of time, right?
Yeah,
And we're going to speak about the cave quite a lot, but more importantly, mentally, how you know I felt about that, and mentally what was going on for me, and my mental health and my own mental wellness, being exposed to that for a long period of time, which was over
right.
7 years, right? And I
Yeah,
know from an evolutionary psychology point of view, you speak about the cave quite a lot. And pretty much your research is from the cave dwellers' perspective.
right.
I suppose why you're here today, and I know mental health is huge. It's huge. It's huge across the world right now, and mental health awareness is huge, and so many factors play on that.
Yeah.
But from an evolutionary point of view, mental health uh, is affected by evolution, right?
It is in the sense that the way our psychologies, our psyches developed
Mm,
was way back.
yeah.
When we were learning how to be humans, moving from tree dwelling to cave dwelling, we learned how to cooperate. We knew who to trust because our tribes were small. Every person in the tribe was important because there weren't very many people in a tribe. Just the general experiences we had when our psyches were developing are completely different than what we're experiencing as modern people.
Well, I and I get and I absolutely get that, and I understand that, and it's interesting that we've been through another period of cave dwelling, as it were, in the modern context. Working from home and hybrid working and fluid working or flexible working, whatever way you like the term it. But I know there's a big push now on people who have worked from home over a long period of time. Now, the employers are demanding that they get back to work. They come out of their caves and get back to work,
Mhm.
which is causing no end of mental ill health, right? And stress and anxiety
It's
and worry
stressful for
and fear.
sure.
Yeah. Where where
Yeah.
do, where does that where does that stem from? Does that stem from our roots? Again, this is it written? Is it coded in our DNA?
So what's interesting, I love the way you are asking this because um, basically when we live in small nomadic groups of people,
Mm,
everyone was brave.
yeah,
Everyone had to be brave.
yeah,
There was no other option. And so now with modern tools, the internet, working from home, we can get through life. We don't need other people
wow,
and we don't have to be brave. We can get our food. We can communicate with people without leaving our homes. And I don't know that our brains, at least a part of our brains, really accept that that is okay.
yeah,
Like our brains are expecting other people around us.
yeah,
They are expecting us to do things, do things that make us uncomfortable, but we did them to benefit our tribes.
right,
And we don't have to anymore. And so we get used to just doing things virtually and then we get comfortable.
mm,
And since we haven't been practicing bravery lately, we just kind of hunker down because we can get away with it.
yeah, yeah. And when we're exposed to new challenges, it it I presume then elevates anxiety and fear and worry and stress, where we don't have that resilience or that bravery to call upon to
Right.
get us
It's not
to
salient
get us through.
anymore.
Yeah. Wow. How how do we get how do we get it back, Annette? Can we get it
Well,
back?
I think we can because
Yeah.
it's in all of us.
Mm.
I think the first step, and what I hope people, if they ever visit my website, will get out of it, is self-awareness.
Yeah.
It's the first step. Like,
Yeah.
unless you can kind of accept your biology or your natural reactions to things, um, and accept them as it's like a coping mechanism, it's not a deficit.
Okay.
If we can get to the point where we're like, hey, you know what? It's normal for me to overreact once in a while, and forgive ourselves and try again. And also look for people um, who have the same awareness. It's
Mm.
much easier for me to get along with people who accept that I'm a human being
Yeah.
and I will make mistakes. And these are the people I feel safe with.
Yeah.
And these are the conditions that we lived in for hundreds of thousands of years before we stopped being nomadic and started farming and becoming more and more isolated, right?
Mm. Mm.
So, yeah, it's been a long process, but I think um, just the awareness of where we came from and how that is still kind of in our minds will help a lot.
Okay. Okay. It's interesting, you speak about nomadic tribes and how we initially started out just, coping and surviving and I presume just going from day to day, just making sure we had heat and light and shelter and food. And
And not always shelter, actually, because we were nomadic. As
okay,
long as we were together, I mean, caves technically were few and far between. It's just a way to characterize the time
yeah,
period. We moved quite often, and I think um, it's interesting. The nomadic part of um, our psyches is interesting because I think that a lot of it was about avoiding conflict.
yeah,
If you were in a tribe and you saw another tribe, and everyone in your tribe is very valuable,
mm,
a lot of people assume if you saw another tribe, you would go fight them. I do not agree. You go the other way because you have to keep your hunters, you have to keep your gatherers, you have children with you. You don't want to start a fight. You want to go somewhere else and
yeah,
go find a different watering hole or things like that. So we could avoid conflict when we were nomadic. So it's a mix of benefit when compared to modern times. And then if you can pinpoint where the helpful things are and where the not so helpful things are, like we still avoid conflict, but that isolates us further now. Back
mm,
then, when we avoided conflict, we stayed alive.
yeah, yeah, I get it. I absolutely get it. As someone who goes out of his way to avoid conflict, I absolutely get that because it's a mechanism of survival, isn't it? It's a
Yes, it is. And not very many people are aware of
yeah,
this. And
yeah,
that's kind of my goal, is to make the times that we spent as cave dwellers a little more relevant. And I
yeah,
think it's not only relevant, but it's important in that we can help people get along better.
yeah. And I suppose which leads me to my next question, right? And again, I've been thinking about this all day because I knew this episode was coming up, right? And are our cities unhealthy for us? Are our cities too big? Are they beyond what we're capable of living in? And do we? That's my first question.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, it's back to awareness. There's this number called Dunbar's number. I don't know if you're aware of it.
No?
Okay. So most evolutionary psychologists agree that around 150, the number 150 is where people can kind of psychologically keep track of what's happening.
Okay.
And if you get over that number, it gets harder.
Yeah.
Um,
And
our
that's
cities,
and sorry, and that's called Dunbar's number.
Dunbar's number, yes.
Okay.
He's a researcher. I think he lives in England or something. But
I, I've learned something new already.
ah,
I love our conversations in it because I learn so much when we speak and talk that
you're
you
so
leave
kind.
you leave me with more questions than answers, and I suppose that's the whole basis of research, right?
Right. And you're like a natural researcher. You're like, but why? But what?
Yeah.
But next, that's awesome.
I love the conversations we have. I really do because I feel as if I'm connecting to my modern self, but also my prehistoric self.
Yeah, you can't escape your prehistoric self. I just think it's important to know where we came from so we can better cope with the future. But the city situation is just something we need to be aware of. Like, we naturally make our group smaller.
Yeah,
Cities are big, but we have neighborhoods.
yeah,
We do it automatically. We like smaller groups. We have a company. Our work is one of our tribes. Our
yeah.
family is a tribe.
Hmm.
And we are naturally kind of break apart these big cities or groups of people into organized groups. And a lot of times we use hierarchy without even knowing it. Like when you go into a restaurant, there's a manager,
Yeah.
there's someone in charge. And when you go to work, maybe there's a president of a company and they have a secretary, and everyone falls into a hierarchy. And that comes even from before we were cave dwellers. So yeah, I think it's really important to be aware of how we used to live that far back.
So are we then disconnected from that? And is that what is causing us to be mentally unwell, essentially?
Essentially, it's not accepting that we have automatic reactions.
Okay.
And it's the not being aware of the automatic reactions that gets us into trouble because we start judging ourselves.
Hmm.
Why can't I handle going to work? Sometimes I don't want to go to work because it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Well, if you knew that in your sight, a part of your mind is not used to that many people, maybe you'd forgive yourself and maybe not use it as an excuse to stay at home, but use it as a, deep breath moment. Like, okay, I'm starting to close up and panic. Deep breath. I'll be okay. There's reasons why I'm getting panicked.
Hmm.
And they're not invalid. There's nothing wrong. It's just that if you kind of accept that you're now living in a different world, maybe you can forgive yourself and maybe you can give grace to someone else who starts having a panic attack somewhere. Like, all we really need is to know we're not alone.
Yeah. Is it that simple?
Yeah,
Wow.
it really is.
Wow.
And what's crazy is like the show that I got obsessed with, the actors got very concerned with how their fans were struggling mentally, and they made like a hotline for mental health, their own, like for their fans.
Yeah.
And they had a slogan that was, "You are never alone." And I started watching the show before I even knew about all this research. And after years and years of research, I came back around and I was like, "Oh, they
Wow.
had the answer too."
Wow. It's incredible. So you've also mentioned there how the tribe mentality is massively important and how the tribe really aligns with your own mission and vision and value and purpose. And I suppose we all have our tribes in the modern day. We have families, a tribe, or the organization we work for as a tribe. What happens though when you're part of a tribe and it no longer aligns with your mission and vision and value and causes you some real profound upset and
Yeah,
stress and anxiety and panic, really,
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Yes. Um, this is one of the benefits of a modern society is there are other people.
Yeah.
It's just that transition. Like, I mean, I'll I dated someone for 7 years and I thought I was going to marry this person. And the longer I was with him, my world got smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
And I remember my first birthday without that world. I had like three people at my birthday dinner. And I thought
Oh,
to myself, I'm rebuilding.
okay.
And I believe I was 27 at the time. And by my 30th birthday, I had a table full of people for my birthday 3 years later. But it wasn't easy.
No.
But you need to forgive yourself and give yourself time because in nature, things happen gradually.
Yeah.
In modern life, they happen suddenly. Even flicking on a light, that's totally unnatural.
Yeah.
Turning up your music, there's a part of you that's like, what's happening here? This is
Yeah.
not
This is not,
natural, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's man-made, the whole process
Yeah. And a
of
man-made is all about efficiency and
yeah.
quick. And there's a part of us that is like totally overwhelmed.
Yeah, and do you know what gets me every year, right, is we've just passed daylight saving time, right? Which again
hmm
is a man-made concept, right?
hmm
Why, 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 and obviously it was put in obviously to support the war effort so that people could work longer in the fields and have more hours of daylight and so on and so forth, right? And seemingly this is the background to it, but it just messes with your metabolism, right? It certainly messes with mine. I don't know if you guys have the same, but certainly it messes
Yeah.
with mine because I'm just kind of out of kilter for, a
Yeah.
couple of days. What is all
Yeah.
that about?
I think it's about expectations, really. Like, what's fascinating about when you bring up the concept of time, this is going to seem like a tangent, and I apologize, but
Don't
when we
apologize.
live, okay,
You tangent if you want to tangent on it.
okay, we're going to go on a ride, and we're going to go
Okay.
on a little
Yeah.
sidebar. Um, so you bring up time.
Mm.
When we lived in nomadic ancestral groups, there was this thing called co-registration that I learned from an evolutionary psychologist that I personally had a brief kind of professional relationship with.
Yeah.
Um, and it's basically the sensation or the experience of everyone experiencing everything at the same time. Because when we first ventured out, we never left each other's side. For thousands of years, we were in groups.
Yeah.
And so we co registered everything. And what was cool about that is it allowed us to coordinate easier. So when we were in coordinated, isolated, nomadic tribes, everyone knew everyone else very well. And everyone had jobs. Everyone knew what they were supposed to do. For a long time, as cave dwellers, we did not have language. We basically thought with a single mind. And so we co registered everything.
Okay.
And there's a part of our brains that is still wondering where that is. Like, why? Why does no one know what I'm thinking? Why am I all alone? And it puts us in a kind of state. But where co-registration still exists in modern times is a calendar. We've all accepted it's August, it's the 3rd of August, it's whatever year. And then time is a huge co-registration thing that everyone buys into because it biologically makes sense in our minds. Yes, we should all know what time it is.
Yeah.
And when we change it by an hour, it's kind of taxing.
It is. It absolutely is. I get that. I absolutely get that.
So we have elements of how we live in modern day life, but we just kind of take it for granted.
So in some sense we have evolved, and in some sense we there are parts of us that are right back at the beginning of evolution, right? A human evolution rather than
Yes, which is radically different than every other animal's evolution.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And the struggle, I think, the real mental health struggle is that, if I'm hearing you right, is that we don't have self-awareness, and when we don't have self-awareness, we just kind of, I presume, just bob along or float along on the wave of whatever we're seeing in front of us without being truly aware or conscious of who we really are as human beings, right? How can we, other than being self-aware,
Mhm.
and obviously you took some really drastic steps to to um, to move. You literally moved to a smaller group of people, right?
Right,
You lived in one area, and you literally moved to a smaller area, because I
right.
presume, based on your research, you became much more aware of your own evolution as a human being, and how smaller tribe for you meant the world, right?
Yeah. And it's funny because I did that unconsciously. I didn't learn about all this stuff until after I moved.
Isn't that amazing? And it wasn't until after, I presume, that all the kind of, it all kind of fell into place.
Yeah, I could look back and go, that's why I made that decision, or that's why I had that reaction because of A, B, and C. It's quite like enlightening or liberating. I don't know what the word is, but
Hmm.
I'm just trying hard to have more people become interested in where our psyches developed. And um, it's really the uptick in people needing like a mental health expert or practitioner makes perfect sense to me
Hmm.
because we feel alone and we need to co-register with someone.
Yeah,
And you you see a counselor, and that person is their job is to know what you're thinking.
yeah,
Of course, that's going to be helpful if you have a good one.
yeah.
Um, so I absolutely get it. I mean, yes.
Fascinating. Fascinating. And that's when co-registration comes back into play in terms of the psyche, because you have somebody in front of you, or you have somebody walking beside you who walks the walk and talks the talk. And certainly the work I do as a mental health practitioner, I pull people out of their crisis, out of their sense of isolation, out of their sense of aloneness, and
Mhm.
help them to reconnect with their world again.
Yeah, we all need that.
Yeah. And in doing so, I suppose, establish and embed a connection that is not only connected to where you are right now, but also connects to that other part of you that's almost written into the very air that we breathe, and the bones that inhabit our body, right? Because that's who
Our
we are.
biology.
Our
That's how
biology,
we, yeah.
as Homo sapiens.
Yep.
Do we need to ditch digital?
Do we need to what?
Ditch the digital? Do we
Ditch
need
the
to,
digital.
yeah, do we?
Um, I don't think we need to ditch it. We just need to be more careful with it
Hmm, hmm.
because there's good parts. I mean, connecting with you,
And connecting with you, absolutely.
which we
And
couldn't do without the
no, in different parts of the world, in different time zones,
Yeah,
in different states, right?
yeah. And it's really good that we can do that, but we have to be aware that you can overdo it
Yeah,
because you can find a group of people that maybe don't have positive goals.
Yeah. And then it becomes tricky.
Yeah, it becomes dangerous sometimes.
Yeah. And like you say, you just gotta become aware of that and move on.
Yeah, just be careful. Take care of yourself. And if we can just kind of accept that the unnatural things we do, we are not inherently bad. I'm not saying that all unnatural things should stop. I'm saying the unnatural things are modern,
Mm.
and there's a part of us that is not has not evolved very much. And we just need to kind of honor our limitations, really.
Okay. Okay. Because we're all, because of our very humanity and biology, limited in terms of our awareness.
Yeah, but we're so smart. We can like reflect on ourselves. We're the only species that can do that, and I think we can be better.
Okay. I think we can do better, right? Yeah. Um, if somebody's listening to this today, Annette Taylor, and is going, what have I just tuned into? What is this conversation these two people are having? For those that maybe have just tuned in, we're speaking about the evolutionary humanity and where humanity sits within its evolutionary pattern. And in some ways, we have really evolved. We are certain very clever people, and we have built large cities, and we've created technologies, and we have wonderfully produced so much. But yet, there's a part of us, and I think this is the part that is really striking, where we, in this pursuit of grandeur and evolution and performance and productivity, we miss something of ourselves because we become, and I've said it to you more than once, and we become human doings rather than human beings. And it's about being appreciative of our humanity and who we are as Homo sapiens, right? Our
Yep.
biology
Yeah.
and the limitations that that biology presents.
Yeah.
But equally, and this is the exciting bit, because we have freedom of choice and we have the ability to reflect, we can learn from our experiences and move
Yep.
forward.
And the more experiences that we have, the braver we'll be.
Yeah, which in turn leads us back full circle where we spoke about right at the top, where we've lost that sense of bravery. We actually become more fearless and more brave because we then in turn take on more experiences.
Yeah, it's a kind of a vicious cycle, but it can also be a positive one.
It kind of goes back to the Louise L. Hay, I think, her book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. We got
Ah, yeah.
we got to feel the fear, right? We got to,
Well, we were motivated to take risks for our tribe members,
yeah,
and we don't feel like there's a part of our brains that doesn't feel like we have a tribe. So why should we take risks?
yeah, because we don't feel connected, right?
Right.
We even feel disconnected from ourselves.
Yep.
Wow. So in connecting back with ourselves, in finding our mission and vision and value and purpose, as it were, we create that resonance, I think, that allows us then to gently connect with our diaspora tribe that allows us then to reconnect with our tribe. But and to put it in context, I have a group of people, including yourself, around me, who are very much my tribe, who speak the same language, who work in the same way, who share the same mission, vision, value, and purpose, and I recognize that, and that's what gives my source of energy to know that, I'm not sitting next to them, as I'm not sitting next to you today, although it feels like I could be. but and it feels like we could have this conversation for hours over many coffees, and I hope at some stage in the future, and I universally hope, and I'm putting it out there, we get that opportunity. Um, that when we do that, we connect really who we are, right,
Yep.
and what our purpose is.
Yep.
In your opinion, Annette, what is our purpose as human beings?
Well, our purpose is to help our tribe members.
Yeah, to support one another.
And cooperate and get some things done. And the things we used to get done are find food and share it. And now, since there are even more of us, we can do things like conserve resources.
Look after our
And
planet.
yes, and not only take care of each other, but take care of other species because we're kind of responsible.
Yeah, yeah. We're kind of like the tenants on rented property, right?
Yep.
So we need to look after our rental.
Yeah. Better, much better.
100%, absolutely 100%. And and I've always heard like this subject is so fascinating to me. Like I grew up in the country, and I now live in the city, but I still feel very much country at heart with country values and country connections, and the countryside roams within my bloodstream, and as soon as I reconnect with the countryside, I'm kind of there, with the wide open spaces, right? And I suppose that innately connects me to my historic self, as it were, if you can have an historic self. It's really interesting. I'm watching the Wheel of Time at the moment, which is another series on Amazon, which is absolutely wonderful, by the way.
Oh, I think I'm watching it too.
Wonderful.
With
Yeah,
the dragon,
yeah,
man. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
yeah.
good.
You're wonderful, and
It's really good.
there's. I don't want to spoil it for you, and I don't know where you are in terms of the
Mm.
series right now, but there's a part of it where you go back through the generations to find out, and understand who he is and how he came to be what he is today, and that's quite fascinating. And I suppose we all take that journey in our own lives, don't
Yeah,
we?
we could. We can. And you talk about the ancestral self. I've actually named my ancestral self. It helps me figure out my own behavior. And so maybe you could try that too.
Interesting. Interesting. And if I can ask, who is your ancestral self?
Oh, her name is Cave Girl Claire.
I like that. I
And
need
I've
to,
written some stories from her perspective, and they can be found on my website. And I think they can introduce people to the the ideas I've been talking about gradually
yeah,
and in a fun way, so we don't get overwhelmed.
yeah. So it's a little trickle. It's a little trickle
Yep.
so that people just introduce the subject. Wonderful. Do you have a book in you in it?
I might have a handbook in me.
Hmm. A survival handbook.
Yeah, like how to be human. I think something along those lines.
I would buy it. I'm there. I'm there already. You got a sale already. I would definitely buy it.
Awesome.
I would definitely buy it. And if somebody is listening to this today that is struggling to understand themselves in the context of society in which they're living right now, what would you say to them in order to reconnect with their ancestral self?
Well, we learn best by copying.
Mm.
That was very important when we lived in, especially languageless groups. So when we're kids, we unconsciously copy our parents.
Yeah.
And I would look for opportunities to use maybe other people as models to kind of shop around and just pay attention to how other people do things, especially if you like how they do them. But keep in mind that the goals of the people you're copying are hopefully group oriented and not individual oriented.
Okay. So there's a tribal element still in play.
Yes. How big are the groups that the people you're copying are helping? Is it a big group of people? Is it an inclusive group? Or is it an exclusive group?
Fascinating. Annette Taylor, I could speak to you all day. Honestly, I honestly could. I think you're so interesting. I think you're so fascinating, and I think you have such a vision of the world and who we are as human beings. That I think it needs to be heard. It needs to be expressed. It needs to be seen because I think we need it more in our world than ever right now. So from that perspective, this small podcast episode, if it disseminates to the wider world so that more people hear your message, then I've done my job, I hope, in,
Yes.
in getting the message out there. Where can people find you? I know I'm going to put the links to your, on the show notes, but where can people reach out if they want to know more about your work in it?
So my website is called cavedwellerclub.com. My blog is there. If you look at it, it's top down. Normally a blog is, start at the bottom and work up. But when I moved it onto my website, I moved it to top down. There's a resource list of books that you can read that have evolutionary psychology basics in them. And there's a place where you can ask my cave dweller questions. It's called Ask Claire. And my email is claire@cavedwellerclub.com. And my goal is to have people, after they peruse some of my ideas, if they have questions, that's where they can ask for clarification. But I encourage people to be brave and do some of their own research, and then we can connect and kind of work through some modern stressors and things like that.
I love it. I love it. Annette, thank you ever so much for coming on in the spotlight today. I think you're a fascinating individual with a fascinating set of skills and a fascinating knowledge and understanding of us as human beings. Certainly, if I have gained quite a lot of benefit from your work already. That I'm certainly more connected to my ancestral self now, without naming him, or her. Well, it'll be him. I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, it'll be a him. And then working back from there to ensure that I am aligning that mission and vision and value and purpose to something that's true and honest and authentic and based on my humanity and biology, right?
Exactly. You're awesome, Seamus. Thank you.
Right back at you, Annette. Right back at you. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to In the Spotlight with me, Seamus Corry, and Annette Taylor, my guest this afternoon. Annette, I wish you well with your writing. I wish you well with the publication of that book. You've got a sale here already, so let me know as soon as it's published, and get it out there. I think people need to hear it, people need to read it, and people need to understand who they really are as human beings today. And I wish you well in it and have a wonderful rest of the day.
Awesome. Thank you.